Now, the countdown to one nation, one election has begun. It was the Union Cabinet which cleared the Ram Nath Kovind-led panel recommendations on one nation, one election. This will become a milestone move which is aimed at simultaneously conducting the Lok Sabha elections and the state elections. In fact, the government believes that this move will cut down on all the expenses and will even reduce the logistical hurdles in the electoral process. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi took to social media platform X and lauded the move. He claimed one nation, one election is a very important step to make India's democracy even more vibrant. But the big question now is, can the government clear the proposal on the floor of the parliament? They need a total of 2/3 majorities. And that's the reason why the union government has now tasked ministers, senior ministers like Rajnath Singh, Arjun Ram Meghwal, Kiran Rijiju. They have been tasked to speak with the opposition parties and to build a consensus over this issue.
Under the chairmanship of Honorable Prime Minister, approved to bring the bill in the parliament, place the bill. One election, one nation. That is in the preliminary stage with discussion with already Honorable former President of India's under leadership just took the historic decision to implement this.
ऐतिहासिक निर्णय किया है। माननीय पूर्व राष्ट्रपति की अनुशंसा पर जो रिपोर्ट आई थी उसको एक्सेप्ट किया है। वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन देश के हित में है, वोटर्स के हित में है, खर्चा कम होगा, वोटर्स को सहूलियत होगी।
My colleague Ashutosh Mishra is now joining me on the story. Ashutosh, to begin with, this is just a cabinet nod. For this to become a reality, it's still a long way to go. But we have already seen how the opposition parties were very, very quick to respond, and they are saying that this is something which cannot be done in India.
Well, ever since the idea was proposed, it was only called a rhetoric by the opposition at large and many sections in the society. In fact, you rightly said that this is only the cabinet has adopted this note and the report of Kovind committee. Once to clear from the cabinet, it requires a shape of a draft, a bill draft, and only then it can be tabled in the parliament. But given the contention, there are certain, the reasons that government is citing that often it affects the governance and certain programs. But the biggest example and the biggest, how it is contrary, the claims of the government, that yesterday only the cabinet announced certain decision, including making an Indian space station, Chandrayaan 4, certain scheme for the farmers. And this is despite there is a model code of conduct imposed in Jammu, Kashmir and Haryana. So as far as these claims of model code of conduct and the governance effect is concerned, that's totally doesn't really make anything substantial. The current example we are living in. Subsequently, often there are certain elections, whatever the election machinery is, if for example any election in any assembly election is being carried out, does the state machinery involved in that? So if it all helps together, or it is going simultaneously, or it is going at a certain time of period, the cost of these elections will remain the same. In fact, to make it feasible for one nation, one election, the election commission will require more infrastructure, more EVM machine and lot. That could make little expensive though. However, sarcastically the people always say whenever there is a round the clock elections, often the government fears to take decision that could be against the public interest, and perhaps only often it is said the government take decision what suits it best. So clearly on that term we see a lot of contentions, but what could give a relief to the government, that it is the NDA allies who are supporting this. JDU in fact perhaps from day one has been in support of this one nation one poll. You heard Jitan Ram Manjhi also supporting the same formula. We have the JDS also on board with the same. So clearly NDA has all the allies, but when it comes to the making constitutional amendment for this law feasible, you required a lot more support than the existing number, and certain, of course, there's ratification from several states, and whether the opposition will agree or not, that will be a key contention. But subsequently, since the government has appointed top leaders to speak to the opposition, have around the clock a round of a consultation with these leaders from the opposition parties. So we'll see how it unfolds, but at large what it looks like, that the opposition not even giving a heed to it, and clearly without this support, making it a law will be very difficult as far as one nation, one poll is concerned.
Right. Thank you, Ashutosh, for giving us all those details and putting things in perspective. While it is the opposition which at the moment is questioning the move, this could actually become a landmark movement for India's democracy. It is the Modi government's cabinet which has given the all clear for one nation, one election proposal. But this has triggered a big firestorm. The NDA alliance has rubbished this nod. The Congress is saying this is a move against the constitution, while the Trinamool Congress has labelled this as just a mere PR stunt. On the other side is AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi, who said that this is a bid to wipe out the regional parties across the country. Now, there is a war which is brewing with regards to one nation, one election, government on one side and the opposition on the other side.
Problem is we got here for a reason. We have a parliamentary system. In 52, 57, 62, 67, we had one nation, one election. But many of the state governments elected in 67 collapsed. They were not able to sustain their majority. Therefore, the election calendar in those states changed. They collapsed at different times, so elections came at different times. In 1971, the election that was supposed to happen in 72 happened 1 year earlier. It was dissolved. You find that the calendar keeps shifting like this.
One nation, one election is not possible under the present constitution. It requires at least 5 constitution amendments. And Mr. Modi does not have the majority to put those constitution amendments in either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha.
There are many issues that the Government of India tries to bring in, and they ultimately take a U-turn because they're forced to do it because the numbers are not sufficient in Parliament. This is another one of those issues which is being brought up purely to divert the people's mind and attention. It is not possible with the current configuration of the Parliament for them to do so, but they have just passed it in the cabinet. They've done other U-turns. This also will be U-turn.
जो कोविड समिति की रिपोर्ट है उसके तरफ से वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन वाला जो है उन्होंने कैबिनेट अप्रूव किया. मेरी समझ में नहीं आ रहा होगा कैसे. ये प्रैक्टिकल नहीं लगता जब तक इसमें कुछ प्रावधान ना हो. जैसे कि अगर कोई सदन भंग नहीं होगा कभी, वो चलेगा अपना कार्यकाल पूरा करेगा, तब तो ये संभव है. और अगर जो है सदन भंग होंगे बीच बीच में और फिर उसका उतने बचे समय के लिए चुनाव होगा, तो फिर चुनाव तो हो ही गए, खर्चा तो वही आएगा. फिर पुलिस भी वैसी लगी वैसी खर्चा आएगा, उससे काम रोकेंगे विकास के, तो पर्पज कहाँ अचीव होगा.
Most of the opposition parties are now opposing it. Is the Shiv Sena UBT also in opposition or is going to support this particular move?
Maharashtra will see a government for 5 years as soon as the elections are announced. We'll see a government for 5 years. Haryana will see that. But what about other states which are having an election in 2027, earlier 2025? How are they going to work? How is it going to work? Let's say there's an alliance party, 3 alliance parties like in Maharashtra, they came together, then they pulled down a government, the Bharatiya Janata Party. Should we wait for an entire, 2.5 years to get over to match it with the general election? So there are various questions that are coming. And opposition, of course, yes. The idea of anything being endangered, especially electoral process endangered, is something that we will challenge and we will oppose. Anything that harms India's democracy and constitutional values, we are going to oppose it. But
हम लोग भी ये चाहते हैं कि वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन हो, लेकिन भारतीय जनता पार्टी केवल पास कर रही है. 10 सालों से वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन क्यों नहीं हो पाया? इसके लिए भारतीय जनता पार्टी पूर्ण रूप से दोषी और जिम्मेदार है. हम लोग ये चाहते हैं कि पूरे देश में एक साथ विधानसभा और लोकसभा चुनाव हों.
They must have passed the rule, but they must have gone for discussion. So maybe in their wisdom they have thought that it will be, you won't have this continuous process of election, one part of the country, other part of the country. That may be the decision, but I have no knowledge.